We're theme park families.
Theme park families.
We're theme park families.
Won't you join us now?
We're theme park families.
Thanks for joining us, we aim to please.
If roller coasters got you weak in the knees,
We're theme park families.
if you wanna find the best dessert or
Take a potty break with privacy,
find a coaster that is tame for little ones,
or one to make you scream.
we're theme park families.
Everybody's ready, babies.
Rescuing you all from life's luxuries.
We're theme park families.
We're theme park families.
Press the space bar. Get it?
Yay!
Well, my little man, we made it to double digits, episode number 10.
Yay! I'm Andrew,
And I'm Adam.
and Mother Nature is crazy.
Very much so.
After the horrible cold snap at the end of December, we were graced last week with 2 days that nearly hit 60. It felt like coasters were in the air.
Riding into work the other day, it was 1 degree. And now here on this Saturday, it's beautiful again. It felt like spring, right?
Yeah, kind of.
It was almost 50 and sunny. Very, very bizarre all over the place.
Yeah.
So-
Spring with no coasters.
yeah, exactly. That's what it felt like. Sadly, it was warm enough to do it, but you couldn't. Some theme park fans are starting to get restless, but not all hope is lost. For opening day for some big parks is now just a little over 2 months away. We're getting so close. For Carowinds, Kings Dominion, and Busch Gardens Williamsburg are all opening on March 24th. Literally almost exactly 2 months away. So even though for some of you it doesn't feel like it right now, it'll be here before we know it. Well, today we step away from our traditional format since we have something special. Our Disney knowledge is rather limited. Pretty much anything we picked up from Mike and EB, well, mostly Mike, right?
Yep.
He's the wall tugger at Coaster Radio over the years. So as a family, we haven't been there yet. I've only been there once when I was about 6 years old. I barely remember just a couple of things, like the Jungle Cruise and a lot of the silly comedy and some of the physical sets that were pretty memorable. I remember the Pirates of the Caribbean really well. We went on once, and when I saw that skull laughing, the famous skull, and where you know that little drop is coming, I was so scared. And then once we did it, loved it, and we immediately went back on again. And I remember some of the moving animatronics and physical sets there. I remember It's a Small World with that song, no matter what age you hear it, just kind of sticks with you forever. Remember a little bit of the Haunted Mansion, and that was a little scary. And the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea ride I remember as well because it was so unique, and I know it's been a long time by now since that's been up. We ate breakfast and dinner every single day at a Denny's, which was right next to the park, and that's about it. That's all I remember since it was so long ago. So, Bub, you've expressed interest over the last couple of years about going to Disney. What about it interests you so much?
Well, I just know that they have a lot of theming there, and I like theming, like Mike, and I just kind of been waiting to go. Some of my friends have been there, and yeah, I just can't wait to go.
Okay. So we said last episode, we're not Disneyophiles in any way. We have a lot of good buddies who are, and we'll lean on them for help about when our trip eventually comes, whatever year that is. So we're so thankful this episode that we got to talk to our good friend of the show, Tom from Louisville, about his recent trip. So in lieu of our typical format, we'll talk to Tom about his most recent trip to Orlando with his parents, where he gives a lot of great tips and helpful ideas about how to make a Disney trip great. So whether you're a Disney novice like us or a devoted fan, I think everyone can find something that's beneficial from this chat. So enjoy the interview, and we'll see you on the other side. We're so happy to welcome our good friend Tom from Louisville to Theme Park Families. Tom, thanks so much for taking some time for us.
Oh, thank you guys for having me. This is a blast. I love the show, and it's an honor to be a guest with you guys. You guys are pretty famous out there in the theme park world.
Well, thank you. We love it. And in terms of famous, how many years you've been involved with different podcasts now, you're part of at least 3 now, so you've got some fame yourself.
Oh, I just don't say no to anybody. That's my own problem.
Well, we are so happy to have you on because of our lack of knowledge of Disney, and we're so psyched to find out a lot of those things about it. Before we get there, though, I just want to talk about a few other things, like Coaster Radio. You're so well known for it by now. How did that whole thing get started with you becoming such an integral part of the show?
I've always been, I found the show right after it started. And much like Mike and EB, the host, my passions are broadcasting and theme parks. And, they had just started, and I just gotten back from my honeymoon, where I went to Disneyland Paris. I went to Paris, and we spent a few days at Disneyland Paris. I should specify that. I did not spend my entire honeymoon there, but I was back and I was like, I want to share this experience with somebody, and I found a few forums and stuff, and while I was there, I found Coaster Radio, and I was like, this is great. This is a show that's radio and theme parks and Disney, and they had the live trip reports, and they're like, hey, you can call in and talk about your experience, and I was like, this is exactly what I was looking for. And I just started listening. One of the first episodes I heard there was the one where they interviewed Joe Rohde, famous Disney Imagineer. It hooked me right away.
What a first episode to come in on. Someone who makes Disney fans just so excited to hear about.
And as you'll find out here, I started a Disney fan and worked my way into other theme parks and roller coasters. But the Disney fandom started young and early. And so Coaster Radio, Mike's a pretty big Disney boy, and he's a Walt hugger, as he says. So I think it was his passion for Disney and other things that kind of kept me in with the show. Now, how as I became a bigger part of the show, it's just, one, they've always invited people to participate.
Mm-hmm.
And I contacted Mike pretty early on and said, in addition to being a big fan and loving your audience participation, I work in radio. I can do editing for you guys. I can do sound effects. I can do, I understand the radio portion of Coaster Radio, maybe a little bit better than some other people do. I understand the work that you got to put into it. And so they've asked me to do things that they may or may not ask other people to do, like do some interview producing and stuff like that, stuff that I've done in my real job that I can do part-time for them. My other claim to fame on that show, from the bottom of the sea. That was just a total, that was just a laugh, and that was just me messing. If you ever listen to radio, they got crazy characters who call in, and that was just me responding to something that EB said on a off-topic episode, and I was like, oh, this will be funny. And I did it. This is back when they had a voicemail line, so they didn't know who was sending stuff. So I did it, secretly. And they thought it was hilarious, and so I just did it again the next week, and I just kept doing it to the extent where at one point Bob the Lobster had his own email account that would correspond with Mike, and I was still keeping it secret at that point because they were working with me, Tom, on certain things, but then they would work with Bob the Lobster and didn't know who he was. Gmail took away Bob the Lobster's email account.
Oh, no.
And so I emailed Mike one time and said, hey, it's me, if you hadn't guessed, and I will still continue to do whatever you need me to do. He emailed me back and said I was on the short list of potential suspects. He was glad the cat was out of the bag. And then we've planned more fun things with that since. So to all the Coaster Radio fans,
well, I remember at Dollywood, and I know the kids got a kick out of it when we met you for the first time, and he said, yes, you might recognize my other voice, and that was a pretty funny meeting. Yeah. Before we get into Disney, which we'll talk about in great detail, one other point that I wanted to get into. And when we first started looking through the old episodes and listening to a lot of the old episodes from Coaster Radio, one of the themes each year was your call about, another year where Kentucky Kingdom is closed. It doesn't look good on the horizon. And it was like 3 or 4 years in a row of, oh man, it's still closed. And then the excitement when you finally called and said, yes, it's going to be open. So now that we're a number of years in, How are you feeling about the state of it now, and how are you feeling about Kentucky Kingston's future, since that is your home park?
I'm happy where it is at, and I think the happiest thing for me is that it's locally owned. It's owned by a local businessman. I know his daughter. We're friends. Like,
oh, wow.
He's a Louisville guy, and he won't return my calls for interviews, but that's a different story. No, he's a local guy. And people who work at the park have a pride in the park. It's a local pride, and it's not Six Flags. It's not this corporate thing. So I'm happy, just the fact that it's local people, and it's local people making people happy. I think ride-wise, they're going the best way that they can. You know, I've heard some things like Ed Hart say he doesn't want a dark ride. And I'm like, really? Come on.
Yep.
But with the space and the other constraints that they've had, what they've put into the park is impressive. I will say this. I never thought I would have an RMC a 10-minute drive from my house.
Right.
That, you know, like if you'd asked me that when the park opened, I thought, you know, the closest RMC for me is going to be all the way there in Missouri. You know, I'm not going to be able to go and just ride an RMC on my lunch break, but I can. They surprised me with that, so maybe they got some more surprises in store. I've been a season pass holder every year since they've reopened. You know, there's been a little bit of, you know, how do I want to say it? It's not been all peaches and cream.
So you would say there's some growing pains. Certainly.
Yeah, there's definitely, you know, I think first couple of years there were some staffing issues. There was definitely some short staff stuff. But every year they're getting a little bit better, and I have a great time when I go. If I go for an hour, if I go for 5 hours, it's still not a full day park. You know, I think after about 5 or 6 hours, you've done everything.
Unless you're a fan of a water park, wouldn't you agree that way?
Well, the water park that's its own 6 hours if you want to do that.
Right.
But that's always so much more crowded. So yeah, maybe I guess those two combined, it's a full day park. It's never going to be Kings Island, and it's never going to be Holiday World just because it has its own unique charms. Kings Island's because it's got, you know, the history and just its immense ride collection. But like I said, it's 10 minutes from my house, and it's fun and it's friendly, and so I'm all for it, and I'm hoping they only get bigger and better next couple of years.
And it's funny that you reference having an RMC so close, whereas a lot of coaster fans would say that that's not even the best ride in the park.
It's not, but just the idea that it's there, you know.
Oh,
RMC's
absolutely.
a hot thing right now, so.
Which is a great sign when you can have multiple really good coasters that an RMC is challenged as the best one in its own park. So I think that park has a great future, and some touches here and there will just make the biggest difference. I'm excited for you to have a home park so close again. So moving towards Disney now, as we have to chat about that. And first of all, first impressions as soon as you got in, my question would be, did you reenact that scene from when you were a little boy when you saw Cinderella's Castle for the first time, saying, there it is, there it is? You had to have, right?
So I have to admit that we did the parks, so we did 4 days, and we did the parks in the opposite order in which they opened. So first day was Animal Kingdom, second day was Hollywood Studios, third day was Epcot. So Magic Kingdom was saved to the last day. And instead of taking the boat over when we got there in the morning, we actually had breakfast reservations at the Polynesian Resort.
Mm-hmm.
If you're not familiar with it, the Polynesian Resort, the Grand Floridian, and the Contemporary, those 3 hotels are all surround the lake,
right,
which the Magic Kingdom's on the other side of.
Yep.
So you can take a special monorail from any of those hotels to the park. You can get to the Polynesian Hotel from the Ticket and Transportation Center, which is where they make you park when you go to the Magic Kingdom. So when you go to the Magic Kingdom, you go in a gate, you go to the parking lot, then you take either the boat across or you take the monorail across.
Mm-hmm.
Or a third thing, which most people don't know, is you walk over to the hotel, the Polynesian, and then take that designated monorail, which never has a wait. They have a security gate. You have to go through security gates. The security wait at the Ticket and Transportation Center can be 10 to 15 minutes. At the Polynesian, it's a minute.
Wow.
So,
what a nice insider tip. That's great.
I didn't recreate it because I took my parents to breakfast and we had a big old breakfast and then we took the monorail over. Now, that night when we left, Mom said, well, we're getting on that boat. So we got on the steamboat and we watched the park recede in the distance, and I did say, there it goes, there it goes.
Okay, so there was a reference to it, so that's great. Now, picking that order of parks, was that intentional to do it in that reverse order?
It was. I wanted to save the Magic Kingdom for last because growing up, that is where my parents took me, is to the Magic Kingdom. I did not go to Epcot till I was in high school. I did not go to Hollywood Studios till I was in high school, and Animal Kingdom till I was out of college because it didn't open until later. So the Magic Kingdom to me was Disney World. And a lot of people still think it is. They don't realize that there are multiple parks within this giant property that's roughly the size of the island of Manhattan. But then the other ones just kind of fell into place and said, well, we're going to save Magic Kingdom for then. And then we just looked at crowd levels. You know, there's so much information you can find online. Some of it conflicting with each other. Usually you can find a consensus on what park it's better to go to on what certain days. And it just kind of fell into place that way. And I just started planning the trip that way.
So day one, Animal Kingdom. I would imagine that your parents, animal lovers, likers?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And, you know, growing up, we had zoo memberships, you know, and we always went to the zoo and stuff like that. And I thought it would also be neat to show them Animal Kingdom to show kind of how immersive a Disney park really can be. Because growing up, we did go to the Magic Kingdom. We also went to Busch Gardens, Tampa. As I mentioned, my grandparents have this condo down in Florida, and so that would be home base, and I would always bug them to go to a park. Right. And so when they didn't want to go to Magic Kingdom, they looked for the next cheapest park, which was Busch Gardens. And they always really liked that. So I knew going in that they would have a good time at Animal Kingdom. I was very surprised at just like how good a time they had. I thought they'd find it kind of interesting here and there, but they just jumped right in head first and were just so impressed with everything.
So was the safari ride one of the first things you did before lines get busy there?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, we, you know, one good thing about going with your Disney-obsessed son is that your Disney-obsessed son picks out the fast passes.
Right.
And so I had fast passes for that ride for us fairly early in the day, because to me that's kind of like, this is Animal Kingdom's I guess thesis statement. This ride represents what this park represents, and so that was fairly early in the day, and we took our time just kind of meandering back to that. I think the only ride we did before that, it's not even a ride, is It's Tough to Be a Bug, which is a 3D film with interactive elements in the theater, like audio animatronics and other special effects, and that's a fun one too. Okay. So yeah, we kind of worked our way back to that, but took a lot of time, especially right after that, going through the two animal trails they have there. They have, essentially, it's like a zoo, and they do really have these. They have these basically zoo displays. But you go to them on these trails, and they're just so well done and so well themed. And we probably took 45 minutes to an hour on each trail. And that's something you may not want to do if you go with kids. I mean, the kids want to go see the animals. Right. But my parents were really stopping and just kind of taking in this, you know, the atmosphere and everything. Whereas if you went with kids, you may want to go and see... you skip right through the gardens and go see the gorillas, because they're gorillas right there. It's awesome.
With that, talking about that pace and them going a little bit slower, and you mentioned that's how you thought the whole trip would go. Did you find yourself able to relax the whole trip and not think, oh, we need to go to this, we still have to go to this, oh my gosh, there's 5 hours left, we haven't done this? Were you able to relax and enjoy that slower pace?
Oh, of course.
Okay.
Yeah. And now I was also the keeper of the fast passes, so I also knew what time we had to be where. So occasionally I was looking at the phone going, hey, guys, we can't stay around here much longer. Right. But I figured that my parents would get tired throughout the day and want to take breaks, or, you know, they would just get bored with it and get, you know. But no, they're the ones who kept pushing me and said, all right, well, I got a couple hours worked in here where we can take a break. No,
Wow.
let's go do this. let's go do this.
Go mom and dad, that's great. Okay.
Yeah.
So rides at the Animal Kingdom, other rides that you wind up doing?
Well, I mean, if let's go ahead and jump the shark here. Flight of Passage. And this is just...
Wow. Okay.
Let's talk Pandora because
Okay.
that was my probably biggest excitement going down there was going to Pandora. It was the new thing, and everybody had been talking about the new thing, and I got to experience it, and it's New Year. I was so excited. I hadn't planned on it.
Right.
So we got fast passes for the river journey,
Okay.
and didn't for Flight of Passage. And I knew wait times were bad, so I was playing on the app and looking all day to see what it would be. So I planned that our evening would be spent over in the Pandora section, so we could watch the sunset and then see it in the dark, because it's amazing in the dark. So we got there and did the boat ride, and it was just much better than I'd read on any reviews or anything. It was much more impressive. And it's interesting, none of us, my parents, my wife, and myself have not seen this movie.
Okay.
So what are we going to take out of this? We weren't sure. We got on that ride, and we were all jaw dropped. It's so well done, and it really does kind of like set the story. Then we got in line for Flight of Passage, which...
Oh, boy.
I didn't even realize this was bragging, but our wait time was 95 minutes.
Oh, my gosh. Wow, that's so crazy compared to a lot of the stories you hear. That's awesome.
Yeah, and this was in the middle of July. I mean, it was hot, but, I've heard that the queue was interactive and interesting. So I said, do you want to do this? I understand if anybody wants to sit out. My mom was a little apprehensive, but she says, well, I don't want to sit by myself for an hour and a half. So we all got in line. And the line really is, it tells a story. If you know where to look, even if you don't know where to look, just look at all the details. It kind of builds up very slowly kind of what's going on. And there was a few moments where it kind of got a little claustrophobic, a little crowded, but other times where it feels just like you're just walking a path. It's very neat.
All right, so for us, who are completely unfamiliar with that kind of interactive theming with a queue like that, it felt completely different than being in line for Millennium Force for 2 hours, the fact that you're actually seeing things and sort of doing things and reading things along the way?
The only thing that even feels like a line is that you see other people.
Right.
Otherwise, you feel like you're navigating this path through the jungle and through this warehouse. It feels like almost like a maze, I guess is the best way to put it if you haven't experienced that. And then, the only thing to remind you that you're standing in a theme park line is that there's a bunch of people in front of you and there's a bunch of people behind you. There's obviously there's guardrails and stuff like that, but that's also themed too. You don't have switchback. You don't have a lot of switchbacks. Disney's they do curvy switchbacks.
Yeah.
So you'll go up and around and back and forth, and you'll end up kind of in the same place. So obviously there's switchbacks. They need to fit people in there, but it's not up one way, 90-degree angle, down 20 feet, 90-degree angle. It's not the Millennium Force switchbacks there.
So that 90 minutes felt way shorter than that.
And eventually, you're standing on your feet for 90 minutes. It gets a little tiring.
Yeah.
But so much more quick, that I'd do that 90 minutes over a 90-minute Millennium Force wait any day.
Okay, great. And so how did Mom do with the vertigo with that ride?
That was the big concern, because I had not watched any videos of it. I didn't know the extreme range of motion. You go through pretty significant pre-show before you're led to your ride vehicle, and your ride vehicle's unlike anything I've ever been on. I'm sure you've heard it's kind of like a motorcycle seat, with a little back support. And so I sat next to Mom, and I'm like, hey, I don't know what's about to happen here. If you feel weird, just close your eyes, because it is a screen. I know that. I'm like, it's not real. You're not actually moving. So just close your eyes if you start to feel bad.
Right.
And then the thing, you have a thing blocking your view of the screen, and it goes down, and the ride starts, and it's almost a religious experience. It's amazing. It's the closest I've ever felt to flying, and the vehicle does move. But it's so small movement, but the movement in conjunction with the screen and everything else, it just creates a sensation. The pacing of the ride is very good, too, because there's moments of exhilaration. There's moments of calm. It takes its time. And so I stopped worrying about everybody. I think I looked over twice to see if they're, and I just saw, all you can see is people's 3D glasses. And then so the thing gets off, and we're all just kind of looking at each other, and nobody's saying anything, and we're walking out. And then my dad, first thing he goes, like, let's do it again. I don't care if it's 90 minutes. Let's do it again.
Wow.
I was like, are you sure? I mean, there's other things to see in this park, and we got other time. No, let's do it again. We didn't do it again. We ended up deciding not to do it again. Mom said, oh, that was just beautiful.
Wow.
I mean, it's the perfect all-age family ride. Grandma can ride it. And I'm not sure what the height restraint is on it, but I'm sure, young kids can ride it. It's great.
So do you forget that you're even looking at a screen? Is it that large a viewing area that you're seeing?
Oh my gosh. Yeah. It's enormous. I could turn my head to the right and to the left. If I turned it all the way to the left, I could see other people sitting and not the screen, but otherwise, like, my whole field of vision was screen.
And knowing of the ride from Coaster Radio, but not having seen it, Soaring, is it similar to that then?
Kind of.
Okay.
So Soarin', you're on a seat, and it puts you into basically a domed screen where it's domed in front of you and it domes to the side of you a little bit, but it doesn't fully encompass you. This is probably wider and much taller.
Okay, yeah.
Soarin' screen.
Wow. That's great that Dad loved it that much. Awesome. All right, so other highlights of day one then?
We had a great meal at one of my favorite places. It's not even a named restaurant. I don't even know what it is. Animal Kingdom does this really good thing where they have like 3 or 4 small food booths right next to each other in various places. And each of the booths only sell 2 or 3 items. But it's almost kind of like a mini food and wine festival. You can kind of piece together they're like $6 and $7 appetizer-y type plates. So you kind of put it all together, and then there's this is on the exact back side of the Tree of Life, which is the Park Central icon where you can see everything. Mm-hmm. And this seating area behind one of these booths goes down to a little patio that overlooks the waterway that overlooks the Tree of Life. And so you get this beautiful view of the Tree of Life. So we all went to different booths and all picked out different food and all sat there and exchanged food and sat there. And we were, the Tree of Life, of course, is covered in sculptures of different animals. And it's almost like a seek and find. You got to see which animals you find. So we sat there and picked out animals. Oh, do you see that one? Do you see that one? And sat there and tried all sorts of different food. That's a good memory I have from that day.
Oh, it sounds like a beautiful place to eat. And so speaking of that Tree of Life in that whole area, were you able to see it at night with the bioluminescent plants and all that?
So the Tree of Life is the central icon of the park. It's a large fake tree. It's not real.
Right.
With different sculptures. The bioluminescence is in the Pandora area only.
Okay, because I know Pandora from the movies, there's also a Tree of Life in Pandora, a main tree that all the blue people pray to, that heals and revives and is like the lifeblood of the planet itself. So 2 different main trees that we're talking about. Gotcha.
Oh, that's funny. I did not know that.
Yeah. So at some point, hopefully that inspires you to actually see the movie, which is really interesting. And then, of course, when the sequels come out, you'll have wanted to see that first movie. But I think it's a really well-done movie, so hopefully at some point you get to see it.
Hopefully so.
Then any other rides from that first day? I imagine Everest you skipped on?
No, we did Everest.
Oh, you did?
Mom skipped it.
Okay.
Dad and my wife skipped it. And she's ridden it before and likes it. She's not a big coaster person. But she decided to skip it this time since Mom was skipping it. So Dad and I did it. We did it once through the single rider line. It does have a single. That's Disney's finally realizing, single riders. We can do that.
So great, yep.
And so we did single rider. And so we didn't sit next to each other. I was wondering how he'd take that, but he didn't mind, and he liked it a bunch. And we went to do the single rider line again, just kind of like, Dad, to really experience a coaster, you got to do it in a few times in a few different seats. The Brazilian tour group that walked up and didn't have fast passes took to the single rider line. So there were 70 to 80 people in the single rider line.
Oh, my God.
Which defeats the purpose of it.
Oh, that's a disaster.
So we didn't do it a second time. We did the Kali River Rapids.
Okay.
it was a hot day, and that's not a ride I normally do because it's a general river rapids ride. There's some neat scenery. But we were hot, and I said, it only had a 15-minute wait, and really that wait ended up only being about 10 minutes.
Right.
And they all liked that, and nobody was scared about the drop on that. I don't know if you know, but that
Not at
actually has a pretty significant drop for a whitewater rapid ride. It's got a little bit of a hill on it.
Kind of like the new SeaWorld ride is supposed to have. That one might be a little bit larger, but that same kind of idea. Right. Okay.
Yeah, and it's a lot more smooth than you would think. We went down to Dino Land, and Mom skipped the dinosaur ride, which is a clone of the Indiana Jones ride. So this is a large vehicle, 12 seats or so, that moves. It's the next generation of dark ride. It's a dark ride. You're going through giant sets, but the vehicle itself can shake and move and stuff. It's a pretty exciting ride system. Ride went down while we were waiting for it, and we had no cell phone reception in there, so we had no way of calling my mom and saying we're stuck in there, that we're waiting for this ride to get back up.
Right.
I think there was like 4 people in front of us, and it broke down, and so we ended up waiting an extra 20 minutes for it. And it's a good ride. I do like it. I like Indiana Jones better out at Disneyland. But we did it.
Okay.
And there's not really many other rides in Animal Kingdom. It really is a park about the experiences and walking to the places, and just the theming is just it's the best themed park on the planet, I would say.
Wow. All right. So it sounds like a really positive day one. At the end of the day, Mom and Dad were still smiling.
Yeah. And I was like, are they going to be too tired and all that? I will add this really quick. The first day we used Disney transportation. The buses so if you stay on Disney property,
right,
they have buses that run to and from the parks from all the hotels. Usually leave every 15 minutes or so from the hotels, and as often as they can from the parks. Now, we stayed till Animal Kingdom closed that night, and getting the bus to Animal Kingdom, we waited 10 minutes. We had to wait through 3 buses before we could get on a bus to go back.
Wow.
And my parents did drive down there, so they had a car, and I said, hey, you can also drive to the parks, and you don't have to pay for parking because you're staying at a Disney hotel.
Right.
You have a parking pass the whole time you're there. Do you not want to take the bus tomorrow? And they're like, no. So they quickly decided that Disney transportation was not for them. And I especially my mom, at the end of the day, she was done, and it was late, and she was ready to go to bed. It was 10 o'clock. And she didn't get back to the hotel that first night till 11:15.
Okay, that is a big difference. If you had driven, the time it would have taken to get out of the parking lot was not that bad at that point. It's not like getting stuck.
No, the time to leave any parking lot, is it's like leaving any other park at the end of the night. It's, maybe 5 minutes.
Oh, okay. People know stories of like a Cedar Point or a Great Adventure where on a crazy night, it can take sometimes 45 minutes to an hour to get out of the park at times. So,
well, everybody in theory is using the Disney park transportation. So yeah, the waits are for the buses, not for your car. So,
okay.
Yeah. I took a trip with Kelly and my wife and I back in 2013. And we had a rental car, and we said we will never use Disney transportation again after the rental car experience. It's so much more convenient to come and go as you please instead of waiting for the transportation.
And now the question is, how much more is that going to change when they get the gondola system in, whenever that actually happens?
Oh, it is happening. They're constructing. I'm excited. I want to try that thing out. So
okay.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, construction has started on that?
Oh yeah. They're building at least the stations for it. I don't know if they've actually put up any vertical pylons yet, but
that's a start. Okay. So day 2 starts out.
Yeah, we decided to drive. We went to Hollywood Studios. Everybody, some people may or may not know that Hollywood Studios is kind of undergoing a change right now. Large swaths of it are under construction. It also has 2 of my favorite restaurants on Disney property there. So our day was really built around our restaurant visits and wasn't so concerned about the rides. And so that was another day where I knew our pace could be a little bit slower. We could enjoy things a little bit more. And so we got to the park and made a beeline for the great movie ride.
Right.
Now, as I mentioned, this, was another reason to go on this trip because I was like, this is the ride that I want my mom to see, and I've heard rumors it's going away.
Mm-hmm.
That was what I'd heard when I booked the trip. After I booked the trip, we knew the closing date. And so when I was there, I was like, oh, this is going to be my last couple rides on this thing. So we ended up, throughout the day, we rode the thing, we rode it twice.
Wow, okay.
So I got 2 last rides in, and I got to really just soak in the details of the ride. And it was exactly what I expected. My mom cried when she got off of it. She thought it was great. Dad was just super impressed with everything. But we're a movie family, almost more than any other type of, that was what we did as a family growing up, is watch classic movies. So that was what I was really excited to show them. After the ride, we spent a lot of time in the front courtyard there. They have it's Man's Chinese Theater.
Right.
Or I guess Grauman's, or I don't even know what it is called anymore. It's the Chinese Theater.
Yep.
And so they have the cement handprints, and they have handprints of the people who visited MGM Studios or Hollywood Studios. And so everybody found their favorites and got their pictures with it. We probably spent a good 15, 20 minutes just exploring the grounds of that ride after we rode it.
Mm-hmm.
We went to do the Muppet Vision 3D, which is a great, I still think it's one of the better 3D films out there. And they got, once again, animatronics built into that show.
Oh, wow.
And so we did that. We did have fast passes for Toy Story Mania, which is the interactive shooting ride.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of a video game than a ride, but it's so much fun. It's just you're in a cart and you go from screen to screen and you have a little thing and you shoot at it. It sounds like a Six Flags ride.
Absolutely, right.
I don't even know how to explain it. It's just so much fun. And it may just be that it's just so they've got the 3D done very well. And your little shooter is just this little ball on a rope, and it goes bloop, 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 bloop. It's so much fun. That's another thing. Disney must have figured it out really well, because my parents, who are not video game people, figured that thing out within like the first minute. Like instinctually knew what to do, and were like scoring up points and stuff.
All right. So did they get competitive with it? Were they?
So I think Kelly always wins. Kelly got
wow.
first. I think Dad got second, I got third, and Mom got fourth.
Well, Kelly, with her cosplay, she quite often poses with a gun in her hand because of the character that she portrays, so it kind of makes sense.
Any shooting ride, Kelly beats me every single time. We got Boo Blasters on Boo Hill up at Kings Island here, and we ride that, once a season or so, and she schools me.
Every time. It's amazing. About then, time for lunch?
We went around the park. One of the problems I have with Hollywood Studios as it stands now is it's really laid out poorly. To get to certain places, you have to backtrack a lot. It doesn't have a natural flow like a lot of parks do. Certain star attractions, such as the Twilight Zone Tower of Terror and Rock and Roller Coaster, are at the end of a dead-end street.
Right.
So you walk down that street, there's those two things. To get anywhere else in the park, you have to go way back the way you came to the middle. It doesn't have a good flow. Areas were added to it piecemeal as they expanded without a good idea of uniting everything. They're working on that. I mean, I think it's when the Toy Story Land's open, it's going to be a little bit different. I think when Star Wars Land opens here in a few years there, I think they're going to finally solve a lot of that. But lunch was at the Sci-Fi Dine-In Theater.
All right.
Have you heard about this?
Yeah, so we were excited when you mentioned that, the fact that we kind of like sci-fi and it's sort of part of my career. And it's something I hadn't heard of. And so it really piqued our interest when you mentioned that. Excited to hear what it's all about, what the theme is like and the food and all that.
Indoor for outdoor, drive-in theater.
Uh-huh.
Cars, all these tables, every seat looks forward. They're fake cars. You're sitting in there. You're watching a screen that plays old sci-fi movie clips and, drive-in movie theater food commercials and stuff on a loop. If you're in normal mealtime, you'll go through the loop about 1.5 times.
Okay.
Which is probably just about right. Kelly and I have parts of that loop memorized and sing along with it. And,
Right.
it's a lot of fun. And the food is not themed to that era.
Okay.
Which I think is something they did originally, and they kind of went away from that.
Mhm.
So, I mean, you can get a burger, you can get, a chicken sandwich or something. It's good food. It's not special food, but the atmosphere is just so neat and fun. And my parents recognized some of the movies, and that was fun. I was like, "Hey, did you ever see that one?" "Oh yeah, we've seen that one." So,
that's
and
great.
of course, they actually went to drive-ins all the time growing up, so they even recognized some of the commercials.
A favorite clip that you have from that reel?
Oh my gosh. What's the robot's name? Oh, Gorpo? No.
Oh, you're not talking about the young Will Robinson and
No,
not that
this
one.
is-
No.
They took a clip from the Wonderful World of Disney in the 60s or 50s,
okay.
and this Mr. Disney, I am a robot. Oh, it's
Wonderfully
it's pretty-
cheesy.
And then dinner, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit.
Sure.
Dinner we did at the 50s Primetime Cafe. That's another famous Disney restaurant designed to be like a house
Okay.
from a standard 1950s sitcom.
Mhm.
So Formica tables everywhere. There, the wait staff gets a little more into it, and they pretend that you are a resident of this house. And that they are either your aunt or uncle or your cousin or something.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So if you were going with a family and it's be like, Breckner's time to come in for dinner. And then you sit down, no elbows on the table. You don't get dessert unless you eat all your vegetables.
Nice.
But on the other hand, there, the food is themed a little bit 50s-wise. It's some of the best food on Disney property, I think. That's some delicious cooking there.
And you were thinking that was the one that Mom was going to like more, right?
Yeah, and she liked it. Every table has a small television playing, kind of just like the Sci-Fi Dine-In, 50s sitcom clips. And she recognized a few of them. That may have been when information overload might have been kicking in, because
Right.
she didn't watch as much as I thought she did. But she talked to us,
Uh-huh.
It's one thing when you have a giant screen in front of you and that's the only thing you can see versus a little TV on your table. But we, had a great dinner and chatted and stuff. Our waiter wasn't entirely into character, but we didn't mind because, it didn't have to play along too much, and had a good time there.
Okay. And with your experience then overall on day 2 with Hollywood Studios, do the construction walls all over the place take away from that Disney mystique a little bit?
For me, no, because I know it's there. But to me, that park's always had a mystique problem in that it doesn't have it.
Right.
It's probably the closest to a Six Flags type. Like, imagine a really well-themed Six Flags.
Boy, that's a lot of imagination. Andrew, do you have that level of imagination?
Not quite.
Okay, we got to work on that. All right.
Tower of Terror. So after dinner,
Yeah.
we did make our way down to Tower of Terror and Rock and Roller Coaster. Once again, which Mom did decide to sit out both those rides.
That's what I
and Kelly
figured.
sat him out with her.
Yep.
Excited because I was like, Dad, this roller coaster goes upside down.
Oh, boy.
Looping rides on the whole property, really.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, well, you haven't done this, and once again, we did the single rider line. Wait time was 45 to 55 minutes. We did 15-minute single riders. And once again, we got on the same train. We were not sitting next to each other. I was like, all right, I hope he has a good time.
Yeah.
He came off and he's like, I need to start riding roller coasters.
Oh, my gosh, that's great.
So he had a great time. He really enjoyed it. The rest of the trip, he kept saying his favorite rides were Flight of Passage, which he got right.
Yep.
And he kept saying he wanted to go ride the Rock and Roller again.
Close?
He couldn't get the name right. He's like, let's do that Rock and Roller again. And I was like, you're close enough.
Well, and then imagine if you took him to Universal and the Rip Ride Rocket. I mean, putting both of them together would be impossible. So,
yeah.
All right.
So I think that it was a good day. Yeah, once again, it was, I knew going in the situation the park was in, And so I went in with maybe slightly lower expectations. But once again, we did find some great times to just kind of poke around and look at some theming. I found a Christmas store I didn't know was there. Maybe it's always been there, or maybe it's a new store. It's called It's a Wonderful Store.
Oh, wow.
So it's a Wonderful Life. And so we were buying Christmas stuff and looking at Christmas ornaments and stuff. They had a little fake snow front stuff. And it's just kind of poking around in these little back alleys there. You don't realize these things are back there. And so we had some fun just kind of exploring the place of what's left, at least, of their theming that they got.
Wow, that's great. Always good when you can find new things, and you've been going for years, so that's awesome. And then one last note about the Great Movie Ride. For you, a bit of sadness, especially since you both have an acting background. So for you guys, a little bit of sadness with that ride being done now forever?
Yeah, I knew it riding it. I was like, okay, these are going to be my last rides on it. And I have fond memories of it riding it, and I used to try to memorize the path on it. And I was like, oh, this is great. But that second ride through later that afternoon, I was just kind of like, you know what? I get it. I get why this is going. I wish it wasn't. I really love the classic animatronic attraction. It's a dark ride with animatronics, like 60 or 70 of them,
Wow.
doing scenes. It's not kinetically exciting, but it's interesting, and it's really neat as a work of art. But I get it. And some of the scenes I was like, oh, I definitely get it. This looks really bad. The Ripley animatronic in the alien section of the ride just looks sad. And then the alien, which I used to think was really scary, is like, oh, it's not really that scary. I don't want to admit it, the fanboy in me wants to think it was great. But I was like, okay, it's sad, but, it either needed to go under the knife and get some way more exciting tech, or it needed to go on. I'm not exactly excited about what they're replacing it with. But that being said, I understand the decision.
It'll be interesting to see what that park looks like in 5 years as there's such radical change. So an exciting day 2 full of tears and excitement and loving roller coasters and all sorts of emotions. All right, so we move on to day 3.
Day 3 was Epcot.
Mm-hmm.
One, I will say a mistake, and it's not even a mistake I made, but the Disney purist in me said, all right, you have to enter Epcot through the monorail.
Right.
So if you don't know, there's 3 monorail lines in Disney. One runs from the Ticket and Transportation Center straight to the Magic Kingdom and then back to the Ticket and Transportation Center.
Okay.
The second one runs to those hotels that I mentioned earlier. The third one runs from the Ticket and Transportation Center to Epcot. The original idea, which is just amazing, and I really wish it worked out, was that would be the only parking lot on property. You would go there in the morning, you would park your car, and from there, you would go to all the parks. Anywhere you wanted to go, that's one parking lot, and you would have myriad of transportation to get to there.
Okay.
Obviously, it didn't pan out that way, and they've had to use buses and stuff. But I said, let's go back to that original Disney World plan and do that. Well, we did it, and it took us 25 minutes to get in the Magic Kingdom Park, or the Ticket Transportation parking lot. And then we got on the monorail, and that took forever. So we were kind of hungry by the time we got there, and, half our morning was gone. I was like, we were already running a little behind. But the great thing is that happened to us, and this is the Disney magic.
Okay.
That cannot be replicated elsewhere, or maybe theme park magic. My parents know a person who works at Epcot in guest relations.
Uh-huh.
She's a friend of the family. She's actually related to one of my mom's cousins by marriage or something. So not blood relation, but still family. And they knew she was going to be there. She knew they were going to be there, but they hadn't made any plans. And when we walked through the gate, she was the person scanning right by our tickets.
Oh, wow. That's
so she looked. They looked up and they're like, "Hey, Lisa." I'm like, "What? Oh my gosh!" So she walked aside, and we had a great moment there. And we made plans later in the day to meet up with her on her break. She's working; she can't just stop to talk to us. But she did. She stopped talking to us for about 5 minutes and asked me about my history with the parks and everything, and told them I was so excited to show my parents and stuff. So that's, when stuff like that happens, it's just amazing because we had no plans to see her at all, and how many people go through that gate at Epcot in a day, and there she is.
The odds, exactly. The odds of running into her.
Yeah, we could have gone through the gate 3 or 4 down, not seen her, walked right past her. I mean, because it's that crowded, you wouldn't have seen her.
Right.
So that put us in good spirits. We went and did the front half of Future World first. So we did the Seas, where they have a large aquarium, and I thought that was something everybody would really enjoy, and they did. Once you get to see that aquarium, it's impressive. They have 2 options. You can either go straight into the aquarium, and it's like one of the world's largest saltwater aquariums, or you can take a ride to get to the aquarium, and the ride is a Nemo ride, like Finding Nemo.
Okay.
It was a little long wait, and the ride is probably one of the least impressive dark rides on Disney property. So I guess my insider tip would be, unless you have huge Nemo fans, skip the ride and go straight into the aquarium, because that's just as neat.
Okay.
We did the land, which is just next to it, so that explores agriculture and all that sort of stuff. Has its large greenhouse. Ironically, it's a boat ride through
through a greenhouse. Okay.
And we had fast passes for that ride, and I'm glad we did, because it's a long line, and that is a switchback line. If you want to talk about boring Disney queues,
okay, yep.
That is inside the land pavilion, and it's literally like 12 switchbacks that are painted green and nothing to look at except the food court across the way.
And that's the kind of ride, that ride would get a long line. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
Yeah.
And the boats hold 20 or 30 people, and they come by pretty quick, but it takes a while to load a boat full of people. But we got a fast pass for that, and it's more of an educational experience than a ride. You don't see, there's a few show scenes, some pretty neat artistry in the beginning, but then you get into the greenhouses and you're just literally looking at plants. So
right.
We made our way over to, we started cutting our way into World Showcase, which is the back half of Epcot, where they have large pavilions devoted to different countries. And so we were making our way to Germany for lunch. And this is where, I'm not going to say it's not family, but, different families will do different things. So a family of 4 adults decided to enjoy the adult beverages of Epcot this afternoon.
Yes, we've heard from In the Loop that area is very popular for that reason.
So we had lunch at, I would say, I said some of those Hollywood Studios are my favorite restaurants. Maybe they're my favorite themed restaurants, but if I had to pick a favorite restaurant on property, I would put the Beer Garden in Germany there, because it is just so much fun to be there. The food is delicious. This is in Germany, so it's a German buffet. You get a buffet. You have it is another indoor for outdoor scene. They've created basically like a stage, and you're in a German village. And it's always fall in there because it's always Oktoberfest.
Okay.
You sit at large communal tables, and they will always seat you with strangers. So you're forced to make friends.
Wow. Okay, that's interesting.
The friendship is helped by the very large servings of beer.
Yeah, so people get very friendly.
So now I'm German heritage. So my dad's grandfather my great-grandfather came over from Germany. So Dad grew up eating German food. I did to a smaller extent. He loved it. It's very good, authentic German food, and it's all you can eat. It's one of the best values on the property too. You get these giant beers. You have live music, live polka music.
Polka. Polka's great.
They have drinking chants. They lead everybody in. They invite kids to come up on. They have a dance floor. They invite kids to dance. Kelly and I got up and danced at one point too. It's a wonderful place. I could easily spend 2 hours in there. Well, I think we were there for about an hour and a half.
Right.
You think about your theme park time, and an hour and a half's a long time. You could have gotten 3 rides in there, but I think I'd trade it every time for that place. I always have so much fun there. From there, we allowed our drinks to just take us across the whole world there. So we went to the Mexican Pavilion, where they have a very famous tequila bar.
Yes.
and we all tried different artisan margaritas.
Mm-hmm.
And those were very good. And then we started from Mexico, and we rode they have a small Donald Duck themed boat ride in there, which is a lot of fun. And we just kind of started walking through the different countries from there, starting from Mexico, which is all the way on the left side, I guess, if you're coming in from the park, and just kept working our way across the countries there.
And so each country has a restaurant, bar, and then a couple of attractions. That's generally what each country's like. Yeah.
And, there's not many rides.
Right.
The Frozen ride, of course, is very notorious. It was formerly the Maelstrom. Now it's the Frozen ride. We did have a fast pass for that. And I was ready to hate that ride because it's a character IP in a place that kind of it fits, but it's just why.
Right.
They did a very good job of it. It's a very enjoyable ride. I wouldn't wait more than a half hour for it. But I'm not a big fan of the Frozen movie, and even on the ride, I was like, this is really neat.
Right.
And they did an amazing job with the queue yet again. That's another queue where even if you did have to wait 30 or 45 minutes, it doesn't feel like you're waiting in line. It feels like you're walking through this town.
Well, that seems to be the test of a good ride. The fact that you didn't even like the movie, yet the ride itself worked. I've heard the animatronics are pretty well done in that ride.
Yeah. They keep getting the technology better and better, so it's very impressive to watch. But it's also very, they do a good job emotionally. They create certain moments, and you kind of get washed up in the story there. But yeah, we just kind of worked our way across the country. So you have a ride here, a ride there, but mostly it's shops. Every country has a sit-down restaurant where you have to make reservations, and you have a nice sit-down meal. Most of them also have a counter service where you can just walk up and order usually a limited menu based on the sit-down restaurant's menu or maybe some unique dishes. So you can still eat everything. We ended up having our dinner, because I didn't have any reservations, at the counter service that's hidden in the back of the French pavilion. Okay. So actually, if the France pavilion has a large movie, it's Impressions de France. And if you go out, you exit into a gift shop, and in the back of that gift shop is their restaurant. And just delicious food, very good food. So we all had some wine and some food and some very good desserts. And then we set up in France to watch Illuminations, which is their large fireworks show. So yeah, as you can see, we spent most of the day in World Showcase, and from afternoon at Germany, by dinner time we were in France. And so that there's still like two or three countries that we didn't get to by dinner time. So
for Illuminations, I know a lot of times finding a good spot for those nighttime shows are kind of a bit of a challenge. Were you able to find a really nice spot where all of you could sit and have a great view?
Here's the secret to Disney shows, and this may not help your audience. It's if you don't have kids, you can pretty much see it from anywhere.
Okay.
I've never not been able to see something, and I'm a short guy. I'm 5'3".
But you've got crazy hops, though. I've seen you jump. You can get way up there.
So we didn't camp out a spot. We didn't do anything. We came out from dinner. The show was in 20 minutes. There was lines of people, obviously, in all sorts of places. We were two rows of people back. We stayed in our place. Probably about maybe 1.5 row more people came in behind us. So there were definitely people behind us, people in front of us. We didn't have anywhere to sit, so we did stand there for a good 40 minutes, but I didn't feel like I needed to camp out to get that spot. Okay. I could see everything just fine.
Now, I think Epcot also has some of those Mission Space kind of rides. A few of those kind of rides are at Epcot. Is that correct?
So we did miss that whole half of the park. So, Future World's divided in half, and World Showcase is a big arch. So the second half of World Showcase, which has the Mission Space, has Test Track, and has the former Universe of Energy Pavilion, or Ellen's Energy Adventure, which will soon be a Guardians of the Galaxy ride. Right. We literally did not step foot into that side of the park because we ended up doing so much in World Showcase. Funny story, I told Kelly, I was like, My dad will probably not like World Showcase because he'll say, oh, it's not the real country. It's a fake representation. If you want real culture, you should go. No, he got totally wrapped up in it and was having so much fun. He wanted to explore everything. And I guess I would say that to somebody who hasn't ever been to Epcot. You know, that's kind of an intellectual jab at it sometimes. People will say, oh, you know, it's fake. And that it does a really good job of showing, you know, being representative of that country. No, it's never going to be the same as going to France or going to Italy, but it's a really neat representation of it. And it's a neat concept, and everybody was just having so much fun shopping and looking around and buying various drinks at various booths that we didn't even think about it.
And all the employees from each world are from that representative country, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And you know, sure, yeah, and it's. I guess you could try speaking the language if you wanted to and everything. And everybody's generally fine. I mean, it's Disney. You really do have a higher level of employees there, and people are happy.
So you're happy with how that worked out? You didn't feel like Mom and Dad missed too much by not getting to that other side? They enjoyed the World Showcase so much that it really wasn't much of a loss to miss that other side?
I think Mom would have ended up skipping those rides that we skipped anyway.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And I'm not sure Dad would, you know... I don't know about Mission Space. You know, now they've recently added a less extreme version of it. You know, it's a giant centrifuge.
Right.
So it's a giant pukey ride. So I don't know if we would have done that or not. So no, at the end of the day, I was not upset by that at all. And that's one thing I think I would say just for families in general. You have to, if you set unrealistic goals for yourself, you're going to be disappointed. Those unrealistic goals are ride everything.
Right. Yep.
You know, it's enjoy all the experiences that you have. It's easier for a Disney regular to say that, and I do realize when I say that, I'm like, oh, you know, I'm the guy who's like, well, what's the matter if you missed it? Well, if you're not going to be back for 5 years, it matters a great deal.
Exactly.
But at the same time, there's so much there that it's almost literally impossible to do that much unless you just want to make yourself miserable.
Right. And speaking of miserable, so we're at the end of day 3. How are Mom and Dad doing in terms of physically feeling tired and enthusiasm? Still everything is going well at that point?
So we didn't have breakfast reservations at this point. And then when I suggested it that night, everybody's like, yes, we need a big breakfast tomorrow.
Okay, yeah.
I think tiredness was starting to kick in, and I'll tell this story really quick. When we were at the Kona Cafe is where we had our breakfast reservations the next day. We're all sitting there. It's early morning, and I ordered some coffee, and everybody's ordering, and our waiter goes, so what is this for you folks? Day 3? Day 4? I was like, day 4? He's like, yeah, you got that look.
Right.
So it must have been getting to us at this point. I think, you know, you kind of realize it. Yeah, it's I mean, you know, 4 days at any theme park.
Oh, definitely.
Is exhausting, but when you're at a Disney park, especially Epcot is, land-wise, it's huge. It's huge. It's huge.
It's huge.
It's a big park. It's a lot of walking. To get from the front gate to the back of World Showcase, I mean, if you were walking full pace, that would take you 30 minutes.
And we're talking 95 degrees and humid most days are around there, right? At that point?
You know, the humidity did not get to me or in anybody as much as it has in the past.
Okay. Yeah.
I think I moved at a slightly better pace. And once that sun goes down, it feels wonderful.
Oh, I can imagine.
Definitely suggest using the nighttime in the parks. And even especially with kids, the traditional suggestion is to go early in the day, take the afternoon off, and go back at night. And that is just the best idea because I've seen so many. I have a special term for it. Kelly and I call it EBM, which is an epic baby meltdown.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And it's about 3 in the afternoon, and you're in the middle of right in front of Small World, and Dad goes, "Get in line," and the kid just goes, "No."
And it becomes a loud world instead of a small world.
You know, and I thought I would do that with my parents too, and they said, "No, we don't want to take a nap. We want to keep going." So it was fine, but when the heat peaks 2 to 5 p.m., it's not a bad idea to go back and take a nap.
I think a lot of people even go back to their Disney hotels and use the lazy rivers and pools to cool down as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
So you have your big breakfast. Yeah.
We had our big fright. So yes, day 3 we were tired. Day 4 we had the breakfast. They told us that. So we took the monorail into the Magic Kingdom, and we just got a little overwhelmed. It's an emotionally moving thing to be there. I tear up every time I go in. And then it was pretty crowded. So we had some fast passes. We had that all planned out. And we just kind of went with went with the crowd and tried to get as much in as we could. That was the day we did definitely run into some frustrations with crowd size and scheduling. At one point, we had gotten in line for the Little Mermaid ride, and the app had said 15-minute wait, and it was clear within about the first 10 minutes that this was not a 15-minute wait. It was like a 50 or 60 minute. It wasn't off by 5 or 10 minutes. It was off by a big chunk.
And that's frustrating, yeah.
And that's frustrating, and we all kind of got frustrated at each other, and so we all ran here, ran there. We got to get to our fast pass and stuff. Once we sat down for lunch, I think that kind of negated that for a little bit. That's the park my parents were familiar with, and they remembered some things, and they didn't remember some other things. But I made sure to show them some kind of the nooks and crannies, some of the hidden fun things of that park. And they are there, You just got to know where to look. And to someone who hasn't been, I would just say just start walking, and if you don't think you should be someplace, there's a sign up to tell you shouldn't be.
Right.
But if you don't see that sign, keep walking.
Yep.
Because you'll find all sorts of neat little corners, ways to get to places you didn't know existed. It's a lot of fun. Of course, the big headliner rides for me are the classic dark ride attractions there, Pirates of the Caribbean and the Haunted Mansion. And so those were ones that I made sure we went to multiple times.
Wow, okay. So those lines weren't really that bad then?
They were early in the day. Now the reason we chose Magic Kingdom also as the last day is those were the extra magic hours.
Okay.
And are you familiar with that concept?
Well, I know there are nights where they stay open as late as like 1 a.m., that kind of thing.
So
yeah.
They do stay open late. This particular one was till midnight.
Okay.
The whole park closes at 10.
Yes.
If you are a hotel guest, if you are a Disney resort guest, you can stay till midnight.
Right.
Now, basically, anybody can actually stay in the park till midnight, right? Because there's nobody going through and like kicking you out of the park. You can't get in on any rides unless you're a hotel guest.
Ah, okay. Because you have a band that you wear.
You have the band.
Yes.
And the band, at the beginning of the ride, they scan it, and basically, if they see you're not a hotel guest, don't get on. You can't get on. We use that time to re-ride the classic dark rides. Those are the things that my dad showed me. I remember him taking me on. Probably one of my earliest memories is Haunted Mansion when I was about 6. And I remember going down out of the attic because you go backwards down this big hill. Like, I remember that. And so to show him that ride, which is just, I think, the best ride on the planet, it's just, they loved that. They loved Pirates. Pirates is great. It's better in Disneyland, but it's good in Disney World. I showed them some, one of the better experiences we had was not a ride. We went to the Swiss Family Robinson Treehouse.
Ah.
This is a walkthrough, one of the original walkthrough attractions of the park. They loved it. They were familiar with that movie and story, and they had a lot of fun exploring that tree. And I did too. When you're with different people, it forces you to kind of do different things. We didn't try even to ride the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. Didn't have fastest pass for it. Didn't even want to wait for it.
Right.
But we did take time to do the tree, and those experiences were great. Crowds were bad, and we just kind of had to remind ourselves, like, it was a lot of just like keeping people together was a little hard sometimes. But as the night went on, those families start to leave, and it made it a lot easier to get around the park. Magic Kingdom's very big, too. Right. And I think a lot of parents underestimate its physical size. And once again, the amount of time to get from place to place. I would almost suggest, and this is going to... I love Disneyland out in California, and I'm getting ready to go there again. but Disneyland is almost the same as Disney World with about like literally half the size.
Yeah,
you can get from one side of the park to the other in about 10 minutes. Or if you try to do that at Disney World, it'd be about a 25-minute walk.
Right.
So for kids, sometimes it's just so much easier to handle Disneyland. And also with parents, I mean, by the end of the day, it was the fourth day. I think we were all getting a little tired. But when the park emptied out around 7 or 8 o'clock, it gave us that extra burst of energy. We did 7 rides in the last 3 hours.
Right.
We were probably averaging about a ride an hour before that.
Okay. So, and talking about big ticket items, Splash Mountain and Big Thunder, skip both of those as well?
Oh, no.
Okay. So you were able to get on those. Nice.
Oh, yeah. We did Big Thunder towards the evening, and that was fun. Mom did skip Big Thunder.
Okay.
Splash Mountain, Kelly skipped. Mom didn't.
Nice. Okay.
And because I was like, well, yeah, I think you'll like this, Mom. And she did. She really liked, I warned her about the drop, and she didn't even realize it, so.
One thing that I was wondering if you could explain to us, Mike mentions it every once in a while, and I was interested in the blending of how it works going from one world to another there at Magic Kingdom. He describes it as being magical, how it seamlessly transitions from one to another. Could you just paint a little picture of how that actually works?
For a park the size that it is, it's amazing the amount of detail that they've worked in, and that's one of the details. They make sure there's no visual contradictions from where you look. One of my favorite parts of the park that kind of does that very well is there's a corner in Adventureland where Pirates of the Caribbean is. And so it's like a giant Spanish fort you go into. In the restaurant there is kind of themed like this, old plantation, right?
Right.
As you turn the corner, the pavement goes from yellow to red a little bit.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, it's brown because you're heading into Frontierland.
Oh, wow.
That plantation restaurant goes to this kind of saloony thing. And then next thing you know, it's like a Wild West bar.
Right.
That all happens very subtly. It's not like a line and there's this, and so as you turn the corner, you're in Frontierland, very, step by step by step, there's a little bit more there. Liberty Square is a section that is themed like a colonial area. And that goes up to Frontierland, and it hits Fantasyland a little bit. So as you get close to Fantasyland, the architecture gets a little more exaggerated.
Right.
Gets a little more artificial. As you get closer to Frontierland, it becomes a little more realistic.
Interesting. Must be just incredible to see, and that level of detail, which is hard to imagine if you haven't been there. Can't wait to see that. So you did make it till midnight that night. The last ride that you wound up doing was?
Space Mountain. We split up. Dad and I did Space Mountain, and Kelly and Mom did the Astro Orbiters, which are the jets that are up on a... It's basically a spinny ride.
Right.
But it's up on an elevated platform, so it gives you really good views. Mom's not going to try a coaster. She's just too worried about how that's going to affect her.
Yeah.
So Dad and I did Space Mountain and got on, and he liked it, but then he said, I like the rock and roller better.
Okay. So that was his favorite. Interesting. So then you all got back together. You're heading out. Was there one last emotional moment as you finished your vacation at that point?
I'll have to send you the picture.
Nice.
It's amazing. He said, because we, as you know, in front of the castle, they have a large statue of Walt Disney holding Mickey Mouse's hand. It's called Partners. It's very famous.
Right.
And so there was lots of people taking pictures and stuff. So I got gave somebody my phone and got all 4 because there weren't very many pictures with all 4 of us in it.
Right.
So I got somebody to take a picture of all of us. And we're all gathered underneath Walt, and that was great. I have that picture on my desktop at work right now.
Oh, definitely send that, and we'll put it up on our social media post. So definitely, thank you.
Yeah. So, and you're leaving the park there, and like I said, I was like, all right, we'll get on the boat this time, Mom, and we'll do that experience. So we rode the boat back to the parking lot. Like I said, we'd driven to the park, so we had the car there. It was great.
Wow. So did they express interest in wanting to do it again in the future?
I mean, we never really talked about it.
Yeah.
The idea, they hadn't been in 25 years.
Yeah.
I think for them to get back, there would have to be significant new things.
Okay.
And
Yep.
unfortunately, I don't think they really care about Star Wars.
Right.
So I don't think they're going to jump back for that. Maybe, I don't know. We did talk about, I will say this, we said, there's this other park called Universal, which is just as much as neat as Disney.
Yeah.
I warned them, I said the rides are a lot more extreme.
Right.
And so Dad's like, that's no problem, and Mom's So who knows, maybe in a few years we'll get them back to do that. But I was just happy to show that to them, that the park at that moment, at that time, like I said, we got the great movie ride. We got we got all those things. We got Pandora, the new thing. We got the great movie ride, the old thing. So.
Well, that's so great that both of them love Pandora that much. In summation then, for first-time goers who have never been to Disney, your last few pieces of advice would be?
Well, like I said, pace yourself.
Yes.
For, a park, they offer a park hopper option where you can go from one park to the other. I would suggest skipping that.
Okay.
That puts a little pressure. It's extra money. It puts extra pressure on you to try to go from place to place. And unless you're really familiar with the parks and what hours they're doing and stuff, you're not going to do it. So that's kind of a wasted expense. Focus on one park a day. That really lets you kind of plan your day and enjoy everything that park has to offer. Make some dinner reservations. Make them as early as you can.
Okay.
They do fill up pretty quick.
Mm-hmm.
But, try... There's not a bad restaurant. So even if one's full that you want to get into, you'll be able to get into another. And they're all pretty neat. And, that they encourage return visits. This time we'll try this one. This time we'll try this one.
Right.
Take that midday nap if you want to. Don't be scared of it. And just enjoy and that's just a theme park note altogether. And you see people who they got to get to this coaster, to this coaster, to this coaster to get their count. It's like, while you're doing that, you run around with your nose to the ground. You're missing the beautiful scenery around. You're missing chatting with your friends. Enjoy the moment. Enjoy the people you're with, because that's what it's about.
Oh, that's everything, and that's a perfect way to end it, because really all these experiences aren't about the rides themselves, but the people you experience with it, the conversations you have afterwards, seeing each other's smiling faces, and that's what Disney really seems to be about.
Yeah, it's a giant corporate entity that makes you feel like you're the only person who matters.
Oh, and what is better than that? Tom, we can't thank you enough for really informing us so much about Disney, as who knows, at some point in the next couple of years, we'll definitely get there. And thanks so much for joining us on Theme Park Families.
Oh, thank you guys. This has been great. Lets me ramble on about one of my favorite things in the world.
We so appreciate it, and you're a great rambler. So we can't wait to see you some point, late spring, early summer, at some park somewhere. We look forward to it.
Steel Vengeance!
Oh, what? What? Steel Vengeance? Wait, that's not Disney, is it?
No, but I'm excited about it.
It's okay to be excited about non-Disney things. Yes, exactly.
We got to get to Cedar Point here.
There are rumors that sometime in the spring somewhere that a bunch of us might meet up, so I'm excited about that. So
I think I might be part of those rumors.
All right, let's put that in stone. We'll see you then. Thanks a lot, Tom. Take care.
Thanks.
Yep, bye-bye. So, Bub, you feel like you know the park a lot better now?
Yeah, I do. I like how in that interview, Tom gave us a lot of the stuff that we might not have known. Like some of the restaurants. He told us about some of the restaurants and what they were themed to. And that made me a lot more excited to go. Some of them were themed to old-fashioned kind of stuff.
Yeah, we would definitely go to those restaurants when we went. Yep.
And I just get so much more excited because he told us how great Flight of Passage is and so many other rides were. So I'm really excited to go.
And out of the 4 parks, Magic Kingdom, the Animal Kingdom, Epcot, and Hollywood Studios, as right now, is there one of them that makes you a little more interested? And it might depend on knowing what's going to be opening up at Hollywood Studios with Star Wars Land. That might affect it a little bit.
I would be most excited to do Animal Kingdom.
Okay, why Animal
Kingdom?
Well,
because they have the classic Mount Everest there, and they have just so many animals, and they have a couple other rides, and I think I would be more excited to do that.
Well, and Pandora.
Yeah.
And you still haven't seen that movie, right?
No.
Okay, we'll get the movie. You've got to see it. It's just amazing. Animal Kingdom sounds like a good choice, but...
What about you?
That's a great question. For you guys... Magic Kingdom has so many classic rides that you have to see and you have to do.
Where's Pirates of the Caribbean?
Exactly. There,
Yeah.
the Magic Kingdom. And so that's the problem, is that the lines there can get crazy. It's the busiest park. It's the most popular park, but all those classic rides are there. Like the Haunted Mansion and Pirates of the Caribbean and It's a Small World
I thought,
and Mr. Toad's Wild Ride and the Snow White ride, and it goes on and on and
What
on.
about, what's their log ride called?
Splash Mountain.
Yeah, Splash Mountain. What about that?
Splash Mountain is definitely Magic Kingdom, as is Big Thunder Railroad
Yeah.
and the Seven Doors Mine Train, all that.
like, yeah.
Yeah, all that is
All
Magic
of
Kingdom.
That stuff is Magic Kingdom. Okay.
It might not be the biggest in terms of thrill rides, not that much of Disney really is, but
Yep.
a lot of classic things that you just have to see, have to experience. Well, thanks so much to Tom for taking the time to record for us the preliminary message and the interview. You can really feel his passion for the place, like so many others have for Disney. Cedar Point has its fanboys that you know about, right?
Yep.
And there are a lot of them. But Disney is a whole nother level. Disney is so much more than just a park. It's a lifestyle, an attitude, a culture passed down through the generations. It's about the movies and the clothing and the cups and the dishes and the mouse ears and Walt's legacy. There's so much more than just a park there, and that's kind of the world that hopefully we get immersed into here pretty soon. Hopefully our trip happens sooner than later.
2018 coming up at summer.
We'll see. Yeah, summer in Orlando, 96 degrees and 2-hour lines. Woo! But we'll see. Yeah.
Spring.
So on the next episode, we'll be chatting about our other interaction with Tom at the Phoenix of all parks. No, not talking about Knoebels here, but Kentucky Kingdom, rising from the ashes to make a miraculous recovery. We'll also, of course, have Andrew's news, our tip of the day, ride of the day, as always. Also, in 2 episodes, something to start thinking about now, we have our next TPF Quest, our question that you can answer with, what is your favorite Cedar Point coaster and why? Interesting question, Andrew. You can think about that too.
Oh, yeah.
We'll be doing a Facebook post here pretty soon, as well as a tweet about that you can interact with, or you can send us an MP3 or an email to themeparkfamilies@gmail.com, and we'll put that on the episode. So thanks so much for joining us today. Our next episode will be coming out here pretty soon. Andrew's a lover, not a fighter, so he won't be in a bout.
Unless it's defending El Toro when I'm a beast. Andrew out.